Right, you're the first one in the studio, mate. It's good to be back. Right guys, welcome back to the Regal Gentleman YouTube channel. We are in the Regal Gentleman studio and this is our first cut ever in the studio, and this is Rob. How are you, Rob?
Yeah, good, thanks.
You good?
Yeah.
Awesome. So what is the plan? What are we thinking of doing today?
Well, as you can see, it's pretty long. Not had a haircut for about 6 months.
Okay,
so,
wow.
Need to get quite a lot of weight out.
Yeah.
Just want it a lot shorter, sort of back and sides, and then maybe kind of more of a textured crop at the
Okay,
at the
yeah,
front.
yeah, cool.
And then cut the fringe in.
Okay, yeah. Would you want to lose a lot off the fringe? As in, like, so let's just talk about the crop style for now. Back and sides we can talk about in a second.
Yeah.
But with the crop, are you looking to have something where the fringe is still quite heavy, maybe more like a textured top more than it being a shorter disconnected fringe, or are you looking to have it all one length on the top? What are you thinking?
I don't mind if there's a bit of length at the front.
Yeah.
I don't want it like down to my brow line.
Okay,
example.
right, okay, yeah, no worries.
It kind of does need to be kept quite tight.
Yeah, let's have a little look at your hairline. I mean, you've got a pretty solid hairline, mate.
Take into account the widow's peak as well.
That's all right, that's fine, that's not a problem at all. The only thing is with that is obviously when you're going for a crop, usually crops are done on I'd say maybe 20s is the kind of like 20 year of age is the kind of thing with the crop. Only because, I mean, you can do it on everybody. The only thing is with a crop is that you're layering the fringe down.
Right.
When you start to recede, everyone's got a recession point, and when you get older, your recession point normally gets higher. It just it doesn't have the same effect. So I wouldn't necessarily suggest that. Now, no way am I saying you're old for this kind of look at all. All I'm saying is that it doesn't always work when the hairline's higher. Okay. It does if you're trying to cover up a recession at the hairline. I think that might look like what we're doing today, and you haven't got one. But I think because the way the hairline goes up and you've got a widow's peak, it's going to give that effect, which I don't think you should do. All right, just personally. But we can still do a crop style as well. I just think as well, just looking at it now, when we've just moved it around, that little kind of bit of texture and bend in the hair, you've got that kind of like curl almost to it as well. Yeah. I think it would be a shame to lose all of that, just because I think it looks wicked. That's just my personal opinion though. So, I mean, you are the client, so you can ask what you want. But I would say, if you, again, take the top shorter, take the fringe a lot shorter as well. Maybe so it's, I don't know, I was thinking maybe just take into account the widow's peak. If you could cut it to like maybe here, so maybe half an inch above the eyebrow, you could still have a little bit of length in that. You could still maybe put a diffuser on one day and maybe tussle it a little bit more, so it's not as forced to style that way. You know, but if you're up for that, that'd be an awesome look, to be honest.
Change.
That would be a wicked look, 100%. And then what we'll do at the top, we won't leave it too top. We'll leave it top heavy, but I don't want it to be too disconnected from the front because, again, just because of the widow's peak and the recession point, it might not really work, I don't think, personally. So I think if we still left a little bit of length in the top, but nothing too overly heavy, would be quite nice. Back inside, so when you say you want to go short, are you thinking clippers, are you thinking scissors? What's your preference?
Yeah, like, I mean, maybe graded from sort of 2 and then blended up into the longer.
Okay. Would you want that with the clipper, or would you prefer scissor on that one?
I don't mind either, yeah.
It's up to you. It's entirely up to you.
Yeah, let's go clippers, why not?
Yeah, do you want to do that? Yeah. Okay, cool. Yeah, sure. Okay, so we can go down to 2. It's going to be quite short. Okay, but you have had it's been 6 months, didn't you say? So you just so you know, it's going to be short. Okay. But what we'll do is we'll do more of a descending blend. Okay. Now, anyone watching, we work from a higher grade and go down. Okay, so it just isn't as harsh, okay? Sometimes you put like a number 2 line in, for example, and we blend it out, you tend to see a bit of a weight line sometimes. So if we maybe started like a 4 and then a 3.5, then a 3 into a 2.5 and a 2, and then just tapered out the rest on the neck and stuff, that just gives a bit more of a kind of less harsher blend, which I think if it has been so long, it's long for so long, it could be quite in your face, you know what I mean? So I think it will just it'll get you round to it a little bit sooner and a little bit easier than just putting a number 2 in and just going up and off. Cool, right, well, let's give it a wash and a condition and then we'll get started, mate. All right. Right, guys, so I've just shampooed and conditioned Rob's hair. Now, I'm gonna work like the way I do a crop fringe, so working from the front back to the crown, okay? So the first section I'm gonna do is my center part, okay? Let me spin it around to you so you can see. Now, to get a center part, ideally you wanna be at least 6 foot, which I'm not. So, Rob, can you just slide down a little bit for me? Now, what you're looking to do is lean the client's head back and go from the nose, okay? That's the best way to do it. I tend to use the small teeth as well. Go from the nose, finger behind the comb, and work right back. And then as you get to the back there, if you lower your head down for me, Rob. So, as you separate it, one with the comb, one with your middle finger, and you pull it apart like so. And that gives you a nice, easy center part, pretty much straight away. There we go. Now, as we've got our centre part, I'm going to take a section just before the crown as well. So we call this a T section, so it looks like the letter T. And take a section from the centre out like that. I'm just going to push it over the crown. Okay, I'm just taking away the crown. There we go. Now, working on the front now. So we're doing what we're essentially a crop, should we say, right? But we're leaving a bit more length at the front than I normally would, for example, only because Rob's got a widow's peak and his hairline has matured slightly towards the recession point here as well. So like I said at the start, if you're in your 20s, you've got a really solid hairline. Crops are brilliant for that because you can get it really straight, you don't have to follow it round, you don't have to leave too much length either side here. But when you do get a little bit older and you get that slight recession in the corners, everyone gets it. I think a crop doesn't always work, okay? Pull and clip it in there. Again, we're not looking to cut any of this hair here, okay? This is just purely isolating the fringe so I can pick a length with Rob that I think will work and that Rob likes as well. And that's the main thing. What are you thinking then? Like what we said at the start, about here, or do you want to leave it a bit long? Because don't forget, when it is wet, it does stretch, okay? The elastication's there. So what we could do is, I think while it's like this, if we cut it to this point here, as it dries, it'll creep a little bit higher up. My middle finger is parallel to the forehead. Put my third finger underneath where I rest my scissor. Not too much stretch, as you can see, I'm not pulling the hair too much. It just got hold of the hair. The tension's quite light. And then I'm just going to point cut into this. The reason I'm point cutting into the fringe is because Rob's hair's got that fine texture. If I blunt cut it, it's going to be quite difficult. There's a chance I could start removing length when I start point cutting into it at the end. So if I point cutting into it now to remove the length, but also add that bit more of a jagged edge to the fringe, I think it's just, again, the prevention over the cure. This is where Rob's recession point is there, and there is the widow's peak. If you bring that down, that's a good, especially when we're leaving the length down the fringe, that's almost like ½ an inch extra, maybe even a bit more, maybe an inch more, if you're pulling the hair down. Because what you essentially do on a crop fringe is you cut it completely straight across. That's what gives that fullness in the fringe. But again, that might look as though we're trying to cover up Rob's hairline, which we're not. He's got a solid hairline. There's no need to. So I think by leaving that length in there and going for that essential crop that was the original sort of request, this is why I advised against it, because I don't want it to look as though we're leaving loads of length here. And if Rob does want to bring it across, maybe if it gets a bit longer or if he wants to bring it across his forehead, with all that length sitting there, it's just going to flop over to the side and it's not going to have anywhere to live. When your client sits in the chair, if you ask them how they want to style the hair, watch their autopilot. Okay, watch what they do with the hands. Now, my autopilot is this. Left hand up and over to the left. That's my autopilot. That's all I ever do when I've got no product in or when I've got product in. Rob's was this. You were doing this, weren't you? You were pulling it across. That to me says that he's going to pull his fringe across at some point. So again, a crop isn't going to work because you're going to leave all of this length here to over-direct the length down to match up to the widow's peak and to kind of make the fringe blunt or make the fringe fuller, which that when he pulls this hair over, all that length is just going to sit into the blend, especially if we're going down to a number 2. So that isn't going to work long term. And again, it's not just about the haircut on the day, it's about 3 weeks, 4 weeks. Maybe if Rob could be a guy who gets a haircut every 8 weeks, you don't know, and you know, you want them to have something to last. It shouldn't just look good for a week or 2. And then follow my guide. So again, as you can see, I'm just working around. There's the hairline and I'm mirroring it with my fingers. I'm cutting that through. I should be pretty even both sides, but as you can see, I haven't left length longer for a reason. I've left it just to match. So as he brings it across, it's all going to blend in to itself. If he brings it this way, if he brings it that way. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut the length again. So I am starting to build up length onto the fringe, like a normal crop. But again, I'm not looking to leave any length in the corners to create that blunt, that straightness. And I will be point cutting into this fringe as well to give a bit more movement and to thin it out slightly as well. See, I'm working this around. There we go. I'm just going back over it just to make sure I've got any little bits that I may have missed. Again, working to that front just to cross check. As you can see what we're getting now. So I lift it up. Watch the layers fall out. Okay, so we're building that weight up. There's the shorter layer at the front, then everything just starts to fall on top. Right, so I've worked up to just before Rob's apex, which is here. Okay, so one section before. So what I'm gonna do is use my scissor, So slide in to the hair just to break it up a little bit, okay? That's just gonna add a little bit of texture to the front. Still gonna give a bit of a heavier finish, but not as heavy as it would do if I didn't do this. You know what I mean? Just taking sections out. Just sliding in like that. There we go, and try and alternate it if you can. There we go. As you can see, it's sitting nice and heavy at the front, but it isn't too blunt and it still falls in different ways as well. Taking a section through the middle, bring that out, because I don't want it to sit too heavy at the front. I'm just going to take that section so it falls a little bit shorter to the back here as well. Again, we're going for top heavy as well. So as you can see, I'm just taking it off completely straight. So as it falls, shorter sections sit within the fringe to give it more of a kind of choppier finish. Just going to break up the fringe as well. Just a little bit of freehand as well. And so you'll get a really nice finish on that fringe now. It's not blunt, sitting very textured, but I'm still leaving fringe in there for them to play around with as well. I'm going to start removing length through the top now. Now bearing in mind, I want to keep a bit of length in the top. We still need to take a lot off because it's 6 months old as well. So I'm going to take about that much off. Okay, it's still quite a lot of length, but it'll also still balance to the fringe as well. Now this is purely visual in length, okay? This is my interpretation of what I want to create at the end. Rob's given me free rein on that, so I'm just using my understanding of how much length I want to remove. I still want it to be top heavy, but just bearing in mind, we are going down to a number 2 in length as well, okay? A lot of guys are coming in with an awful lot of length in the hair because we've been in a 4-month lockdown in the UK. So I'm sure, I'm sure some of you are aware of that. But yeah, so I decided I got actually treated to these pair of scissors actually for Christmas, and I only used them last week, which is 4 months after I got them, which is really strange. But they are a 7-inch scissor, okay? So they are much bigger than the other ones. So starting again from the back, using this guide from the left-hand side. Now I'll have a guide as well from behind now. So I'll pull that back. There's my guide. And you'll see not much to come off at all when you get to the front. There we go. Cool. I'll do it from the front to the back as well. Okay, so I'm combing all this over, and I'm picking this up. Now I'm cutting it from the recession point, okay? So I'm over directing everything to the recession point. I'm going to cut that straight, completely parallel to the other side, because this is the point where I'm going to start working on my clipper work, okay? So this is going to be my guide for the clipper work, but I'm also graduating it into the top sections too. Look at this, nice and blunt, purely because this is about structure now. This is all about the primary shape, so I'm not going to point cut into this bit really, because it's going to be getting taken off with clippers either way. So again, I'm point cutting this just to give a nice textured finish. And this is going to be my guide for the clipper work now. There we go. Here's my guide again. Same as the other side for the clipper work. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to comb it over to one side, like so. My finger in place, comb it across it diagonally, like so. And then just with the corner holding the razor like a pen, just going to slide into my finger. You can see bits of hair coming off, just enough to create a bit of texture. Now, Rob's hair is quite fine, so I'm not going to overdo this, okay? I just want to create a little bit of texture for when it's lying flat, okay? Again, the sections can be slightly messy. Doesn't have to be a perfect section for this. We're working into that fringe as well to really break it up. Across, middle finger in, and then come it from the section and grab it between your fingers. And then just work to your finger. And add that little bit of texture into it as well. So my fingers start, say, halfway through, should we say. I'll do slice, 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 slice. Fingers come a bit lower down. Slice, slice, slice. Alternate the direction. And then do it again. And all that's doing is just cutting layers into that to break it up even more. When you're doing it at normal speed, sliding it in and just moving it around. And all that does, it just breaks up the fringe. There we go. A little bit of volume into the hair, because it's quite fine hair. I just want that to give it a little bit of oomph to it, you know, give it a little bit of fullness to it. Especially if you're going to use a powder or something, this will really help with the thickness as well. High heat and a medium speed. I'm just going to finger dry this. I haven't put anything into the hair yet. I want this to be very low maintenance, so I'm just going to dry it off. This is something that Rob could leave to dry naturally. That's the aim. And just put a little bit of something in, maybe it's a little bit towel dried or whatever else. And I'm just combing the fringe over with my fingers like that, with a bit of heat behind it. And then I'm going to do it the other way as well. Because I want this to fall very naturally, in any direction really. There we go. So if you have a look at that texture in the top there that I've put in, look how much that moves around. It's got nothing in it whatsoever. So, starting with my clippers now, I'm gonna descend into the blend, okay? So working downwards. I'm gonna start with a 4.5, okay? Again, really seamless, really natural blending. I'm not going for anything too harsh or too weight liney or anything like that at all. All that length here that we left, this section, and then that shorter length, that's the point where I'm gonna blend up to, okay? 4.5, I'm working up and off. What this will do, it gives us a good reference of where we need to start our squareness as well. By working up into that, it's going to create a nice lean finish to Rob's face shape as well. On the guard, I'm going to drop it down a touch at the back as well. Corner, working up and off. Then we're on 4.5 here. Working up and off, like so. So now I'm just going to work up and off now, just to perfect that. Now we can start to descend through the guard now. So lever to closed, and working up and off, and just pulling away just before our point of blending there. There we go, here's my number 4. Moving on now to my 3 guard. Lever down, push the hair away. Again, same thing, using the corner to remove the length. And then just flick up and off into that number 4. So the number 4 was there, my 3.5 is here now. Just working up and off like that. There we go, now up to the 3. Again, working up and off to the 3.5, so pulling away to where the 3.5 started. Now, the very nape of the neck, you're just starting to see scalp exposure just right there, where there's a little bit of a bump, and just here. So I think descending has definitely proved me right here, because I wanted to make sure there was no scalp or very little scalp exposure, and the only scalp exposure you're going to see is around the nape. Number 2 now, lever down. Onto my number 2 now. I'm working just up and off into where the 2.5 was. So there goes my 2 into my 2.5. So 2 guard off and my 1 guard on now, the lever down. Clippers on, lever down, up and off. Again, I'm not looking for a very harsh tape. I'm not looking to put like a 0 line in here and blend it up out. Just looking for something very natural. So just at the very bottom, and just your fingers, not in the wrist, just the fingers, and just flicking the fingers up and off to remove any unwanted hair, unnecessary longer hair down the bottom. Now I'm going to work into the half. So the good thing about this Babyliss clipper is it's got the little clips at the side here where the lever will fall into, okay? Now I'm going to halfway, okay? Going just a little bit lower, very bottom of the hairline now, up and off, very bottom of the neck. There you go, starting from the nape, working up. What you can do is you can turn the clipper around and just work down, just to get any of the longer hairs, just takes it a little bit tighter for you. Up and off, like that. And there's a nice natural taper. So back onto my number 2 now. I'm going to work around the ears now. Pull the mask away. Now I'm just finishing off with my number 2 on the very bottom, just to match into the back. Working it around the ear with that longer hair. So I'm going to start to taper in around the ears now. Scoop up with the comb as you see all that longer hair comes through, and then just remove all that. Nice natural finish. Again, we've gone for a natural blend. There's no point in doing a really high loop, because if you were to loop it too high around, it would show stubble after about a week, and then obviously the haircut looks a little bit untidy then as well. So again, I always try and work as close to the natural hairline as possible. That's why the tapering technique of the comb around the ears works really well for that. Just looking at you from this side, Rob, you've got such a Cillian Murphy vibe going on. You really, the hair colour, the hairstyle almost as well. It's not a bad look that, mate, I tell you.
I'd say that was a compliment.
100%, mate, I would, 100%. Like as people say I'm like the Paul Hollywood son or something like that. I don't know. I think that's a compliment. I don't know, you know. I don't know whether it is or not. There we go. Again, if you follow the hairline, naturally, you don't cut into it too much. It's not too hard to match up both sides as well, because I know, especially when I started off, that was where I struggled quite a lot, was trying to match up the back, the neckline. I'd always find one side went in too much. And again, it was because I was cutting into the hairline too much. So if you look at that, I've just followed the hairline. I've literally just strengthened it up. And if you look from the back, it's perfectly even both sides. It matches in perfectly both sides. Moving back on to our blending in now. So I'm going to blend in with clipper over comb. Okay, up and off. There's the guide coming through the top. So not much should come off, but as we gradually get lower down towards the clipper work, you press the comb slightly closer to the head, and before you know it, nothing else comes off and you've got a nice blend. Again, this is all combed out from the crown as well, remember, so we're cutting it naturally into the crown growth. So what we'll do now is I'm going to cut the crown in to play, and just above it, and pull it out and comb from underneath. And there, underneath is the guide. Again, I'm going to point cut that and point cut it. Straight out, completely parallel. I'm just going to pick this up through my fingers. I'm just going to cut into this because there's quite a lot of weight on that left-hand side there. And just starting from the left-hand side to the right-hand side, I'm going to cut it in. And it just layers it nicely into that side there. Now what we can do is, now the crown is sitting flat, I can see this now, and this is what I do on a lot of the crop videos. I cut the crown into play. So I know, taking this section off here, the way Rob's crown falls nicely and it's not going to spike up, I can get away with taking length off. And just removing a bit more length of the crown. There we go. Now what I'm going to do now, bit of scissor over comb. Place the scissor in, comb underneath, follow it into the comb, and just break that bluntness off there. Straight in, not looking to remove length, I'm just removing thickness. So it is length coming off, but it's not noticeable length. Straight in, like that. Like underneath here as well, like so. That will thin it out as well. So make sure it's all cut in, make sure it looks nice and full, but it still matches the hairline. I'm going to break this up ever so slightly. Close your eyes for me now, Rob. Straight in, like so, nothing too major. Just going in at the root, just to break that fringe up a little bit. So just let them rest his head on you. That way you've got full control then. There we go, and that's it.
Cool.
Happy, yeah?
Yeah, really
cool, man. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Perfect, thank you. So what we'll do is we'll just have a little recap. So when Rob came in, we had a little chat, nice little consultation, and essentially what it was, Rob hadn't had his haircut for 6 months almost, since December. We went into a lockdown in the UK, so obviously you weren't able to get a haircut basically, unless you're going to do it yourself, which I think this time round people have steered away from, which was brilliant because Rob came in with a lot of length to play with, such a blank canvas. He basically wanted something a little bit different, so he was looking for the crop kind of haircut, but I tried to advise him against it, still with that same element or similar element of a crop, cut very similar, just without the kind of bluntness and leaving the weight in the corners here to create that blunt fringe or the shorter fringe, we say. So we cut it essentially similar to a crop, so T-section through the top and then sectioned off the fringe just before the apex. Point cut into the fringe or nothing too blunt, trying to keep everything as feathered and as soft as we possibly could. And then we just blended it right down, descended into a number 2 on the back and sides, and used the razor for texture. A little bit of scissor work, so I was sliding in with the scissor as well. So again, trying to keep everything very soft, very lived in. I think again with a crop, it can be sometimes too perfect. I think a bit more of a lived in finish, especially with Rob's kind of hair as well, like that kind of slight bit of curl. If I scrunch this with a diffuser, you get such good curl to it, So I think having something too perfect for Rob or too blunt wouldn't benefit him really. I think something lived in, looser is much better. Again, natural tapering through the bottom, just blended it out into nothing. Lying out as low as possible, keeping it within the hairline for longevity. We may go into another one, you never know. And that was pretty much it. As you can see, you've got that nice squareness in there. If you wouldn't mind, Rob, could you just pull your mask down for me as well, so we can see it into your face shape as well. So as you can see, but keeping that corner through there, it's really matched up at the side. So if you can see that, it works right down to the jawline. And that's what we're looking for. All right, thanks, Rob.